players to pick up this weekend, starting with Hunter Harvey, reliever for the Royals. Closer for the Royals? Maybe. He was just traded from the Nationals last weekend. He's not yet officially named the closer for his new team, but he should have a good shot. Harvey was stuck behind Kyle Finnegan in Washington. Finnegan had a 2.45 ERA and a 1.02 whip. The closer in Kansas City, James MacArthur's got a 3.99 ERA and a 1.30 whip. Not exactly closer numbers. Harvey saved 10 games last year, had an ERA of 2.82 and a whip under 1. Was having similar success to start this year until he fell into a bit of a rough patch just before the break, which means his ERA is now up to 4.20 on the season. But I'm less concerned about just 2 weeks for a reliever. I'm much more interested in looking at his last 3 seasons, where he's got a 28% strikeout rate and a 6% walk rate. Looks like a potential closer to me. If you're looking for a starting pitcher, how about Max Meyer of the Marlins, who's looked like he's been about to return for a while, and it seems for real this time. He's just passed a service time threshold, so the Marlins have managed to steal an extra year of team control, which means nothing holding them back from calling him up and using him in the rotation the rest of the way. Meyer is very likely to hold down a rotation spot for the remainder of the season once he gets the call up, because the back end of the Marlins rotation right now, Yanni Chirinos, Rodri Munoz, Brian Hoeing, those are not very intimidating names. Meyer is very talented. He was once a top 30 prospect at RotoWire before undergoing Tommy John surgery a few years ago. Might be on an innings restriction, but he also might not, because the restricted workload he had in the minors means he's only got 71 2/3 innings right now. He had been making shorter starts right when he was demoted at the start of the season, but he got past 5 innings in his last 2 starts. Seems like the Marlins are preparing for him to be a normal starter. At a 2.12 ERA in his 3 big league starts to start the season. Doubt he's going to do quite that well, but should be quite useful over the final couple months. And finally, consider Jeffrey Springs, lefty for the Rays, if you're looking for a starter. Several top starters about to return to action in the next few days, including Clayton Kershaw, Robbie Ray, Kodai Senga. Springs is more available than those guys, and don't forget about him. He should be back soon as well, making one more rehab start this Saturday, but should probably be his last one, given they already reached 77 pitches in his next to last rehab start. He actually got knocked around a bit in that one, but over the course of his rehab outings, he has 29 strikeouts against just 1 walk, so it looks like he's in good form as he makes his way back from Tommy John. There's some worries about his usage down the stretch, as there is with pretty much any Ray and any Rays starter, but Springs is good enough to bump Zach Littell out of the rotation over the final 2 months of the season. Springs, since the start of 2022, had a 2.26 ERA, a 1.01 whip, a 28% strikeout rate, 6% walk rate. That's a frontline starter, and even though there's some risk with anybody coming back from Tommy John surgery, don't forget about Springs among the group of returning potential aces. Over on the hitting side, Michael Toglia of the Rockies, he had a 3-homer day to end the first half, means he now has 16 homers and 192 plate appearances this season. That's on pace for exactly 50 if you got a full season of 600 plate appearances. That's tons of power, but it comes with a 197 batting average, although StatCast said he deserves much better. 245 expected batting average for Toglia. He strikes out far too much, 31% of the time this season, but he also hits the ball very hard. An 18% barrel rate is top of the scale, and his hard hit rate is north of 50% as well. Should be able to run a high BABIP in Coors Field, given him that he hits the ball that hard. He's got a 180 BABIP so far. That is not going to last. We should see a whole bunch more singles to go along with all the homers for Toglia. He's an incomplete player, but there should be enough to beat out the rest of the unimpressive Rockies and keep him in regular playing time. Also, for people in leagues with playoffs, 4 of the Rockies' final 5 series are at home, so if you got the luxury to think about September in July, maybe add a couple Rockies. And finally, Juan Yepez had a decent rookie season with the Cardinals in 2022, but then took a step back last year, spent most of the year in the minors, then got non-tendered, signed a minor league deal with the Nationals, spent most of the first half in AAA, but he got his shot in early July and is playing every day. Hit 378 with an OPS north of 1,000 and just 1 more strikeout than walk in his first 10 games, hitting as high as 3rd in the lineup for the Nationals. Yepez isn't anything special, but he's not a bad hitter. He's got 114 career major league games, strikes out 23% of the time. That's basically league average. He's got an 8.5% barrel rate. That's a little bit better than league average. Basically, you're looking at an average bat who's playing all the time. Now, if Yepez's bat falls off, he's going to lose his playing time, but if it doesn't, league average with everyday playing time, that works in a lot of fantasy leagues. All Yepez has to do is beat out Joey Gallo and Harold Ramirez to keep that regular playing time the rest of the way. For more names, check out the Saturday edition of the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast with me and Ryan Boyer.